Hey everybody, thanks for clicking on this video. As you can tell looking around me, we are in the middle of a winter storm event. Well, we're not in the middle of it, we're on the tail end of it and a couple of days into the fallout from it. In my area, we received more snow in the last few days than we have in the last couple of years combined. Folks around here are not used to this, but we're making the best of it. And in the process of that, here's a great way to present my next homemade MRE video. Look, there's a lot of people around us right now that are losing power and are having to deal with blackout conditions. And that is exactly why this kind of a prep is a great idea. So this week's homemade MRE I created at Sprouts. I knew going in this was not going to be an easy task. Given the rules for how I do this, I knew that Sprouts was going to be a little bit of a challenge. For those of you who are not familiar with Sprouts is one of these kind of natural food markets that prides itself on selling foods with limited preservatives and additives, which also means that these things have a shorter shelf life. So the first thing I guess we ought to do is we ought to dive into the rules of how this works. If you've seen these other homemade MRE videos, you probably know the rules by now, but if this is your introduction to this channel, here are the rules for how I build my homemade MREs. Rule number one, everything that goes into the MRE has to be able to be eaten straight out of the package. Nothing that has to be rehydrated or anything like that. The only exception is a drink. I can have a drink mix or a tea bag or a coffee sachet or something like that. Rule number two, everything in here has to have a minimum of a 1-year shelf life. The reason for that is if I create this thing and then I sock it away somewhere and it takes me a year to get back to it, I want to make sure that everything in it was as fresh as possible when it went into the package. And finally, rule number three is the menu. It must have an entree, a side, a walking around snack, a dessert, and a beverage. So with all that being said, let's have a look at the Dad Budget Adventures MRE. Now, usually my naming convention on these things has something to do with the store that I got it from, and I guess that's the case with this one. This is menu Bougie 1. I'm almost embarrassed by this thing. When I first started creating these things, one of the reasons was that your prepackaged MRE is a little bit expensive for a civilian market. They can tend to run anywhere from $25 to $30 sometimes. You can get them around $9 or so sometimes, but usually those are MREs that are a couple of years old, and you don't really know much about how they were stored or kept. But this thing was expensive. I'm sorry. It's almost embarrassing how much money I spent on this thing. And of course, I spared no expense on the label. It no longer looks like it was written by a 5-year-old with crayon. Now it looks like the graphic design was turned over to a classroom of first graders. So we're moving up. But without further ado, let's dive into this thing and let's see what the ingredients are. Before we dive into it though, I need to get some water boiling because the beverage that I've got in here requires that. So let's do that real quick and then let's come back and see what's in here. All right, so let's tear into the Dad Budget Adventures MRE menu Bougie 1 and see exactly what I'm having for lunch today. So the full name for this store, if you go looking for one in your areas, is Sprouts Farmers Market. Now that name caught them a little bit of flack because typically the name Farmers Market implies that it's a locally sourced product that's sold there, and all the items that they sell are brought in from central locations. They're not something where they are going out to local farmers and saying, hey, we want your meats, we want your vegetables. Now, if I'm wrong about that, if they do get some of that, then please correct me and leave me a comment down below. But for the most part, the products on the shelves, the pre-prepared products, are all things that are coming from the same location. So to kick this thing off, we're going to see what I got for my entree item. Now, this thing, I was super stoked. This was the first thing I found when I walked in, because when I went in, I kind of went in questioning if I was going to be able to be successful with this or not. So the first thing I did was went to find my entree, because if I couldn't find something for that, it was going to be pointless to continue the search. But I got kind of excited when I found this, because not only did I find something that meets the parameters, I found something that looks like it's going to be really good. What I got for my entree is this Tasty Bite protein bowl. This is all shelf-stable food that's ready to go. It's got a serving bowl with it, and it's intended to be microwaved, but you can cook it in other ways, and we're going to do that today. This is a Mexican-style protein bowl. It's a medley of whole grains and beans and a Mexican-style citrus cilantro vinaigrette. Bougie one. Full on bougie. And after we get the beverage made, we'll get the entree going because it's going to take a little bit for it to cook. For our beverage, since we've got to do that next, I got some of this Tazo English breakfast tea. Tazo is a brand that Starbucks uses, and I've had this before. My wife really likes this tea, so I knew that the extra bags that don't go in here are not going to go to waste. Now that my water's boiling, I'm going to go ahead and get this brewing so we can get the entree going next. Our next item is our side. Because the entree is a vegetarian dish, I wanted something with a little meat to it, and I found this Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. This flavor is Teriyaki Balboa. Jerky's always a good addition into these things, a good source of protein, good source of salts, and a lot of other things that you might need when you're out being active. And this is tangy teriyaki with a punch of pepper. A couple of my favorite things. For our walking around snack, I found this Sprouts Organic Applesauce. It's one of these little squeeze bottles. Doesn't even require a spoon or anything. You simply pop that top, squeeze it into your mouth, and you've got that little burst of sugars and nutrients and vitamins and all the things that you need to get you just a little bit of energy going to go just a little farther. Of course, I've got my accessory pack in here with a little plastic sport napkin and a coffee stirrer. I'm going to start adding a reusable utensil into these kits. I really don't like using single-use stuff if I can avoid it, but for this one we're going to use this. And finally, our dessert is a Made Good cookies and cream granola bar. This ought to be a pretty good dessert. Once again, a little bit of extra vitamins, a little bit of extra nutrients, some protein, and a little extra something to sit heavier on your stomach. Because if you're breaking into your MREs, it's usually because either you're doing something where you're exerting a lot of energy, or you're in a situation where you're kind of having to rely on these for sustenance. And the more you can get in a single meal, the better. All right, so let's get this entree going. Let's see exactly what we've got in here. So it's got the meal in a bowl, but it's also got this little additive pack with a little bit of extra seasoning and stuff. This must be the cilantro lime sauce. So yeah, I think this is going to be pretty good. Looks good. I mean, it's not pretty, but it looks like it's probably tasty. So let's get this into the Stanley cook pot and get it cooking. All right, as usual, while the entree cooks, we're going to try some of these other items and see if it's something that I would buy again if I wanted to make another one of these to keep on hand. I don't know if I want to spend that kind of money again, but if I decided to, I could. So let's tear open the Righteous Fellow Craft Jerky Teriyaki Balboa. Let's see what we got. Ooh, it smells really good. It's got a very sweet aroma to it. That teriyaki smells really sweet. It feels really tender. It's not too dried out and gummy feeling. It's good. There's a hit of that black pepper at the back of my throat that kind of comes in later. The sweet flavor hits you at first, then that black pepper kind of hits you. It's got a good chew to it. It's a little chewier and not quite as tasty as the orange teriyaki that I got at Ollie's. This is also something that's probably made with more natural ingredients, so it's going to have a different texture and different flavor. But I would definitely get that again. That's good jerky. All right, so let's take a hit off of this walking around snack, our applesauce. See how that is. Or natural appley scent. This has no sugar added, it's organic, and it doesn't have any kind of extra flavors like cinnamon or strawberries or anything like that. It's just straight up apple. It's good, but it's a little odd tasting, but I think I know why. I'm thinking this is not an overly sweet apple that they use, and the fact they don't add any sugar to it kind of gives it more of, not really a savory flavor, just not a super sweet flavor. I have a feeling they keep the peel on there when they're blending up the pulp and making this, because it's got a very whole apple flavor to it. That's not bad. The first hit of it's a little weird. After you get used to it, it's not bad. Now would be a good time, if you haven't already done so, to be sure and like this video. Also subscribe to the channel. And my dog's doing zoomy laps around my camera. Bobby, go down. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can be made aware of all upcoming videos. And while that's being said, this channel has started growing like crazy over the last couple of weeks. I really appreciate all of my new subscribers, and a huge thank you to all the old subscribers that have been hanging in there for me. All right, so let's try this tea, this Tazo English breakfast tea. That's good tea, and it's a good day for hot tea. It's so cold out here, y'all. And I'm not wearing gloves right now. My fingers are starting to get a little tender. Let's give this entree a try, see what we got. I'm going to pour it out of that Stanley Cook pot back into the bowl so that you guys can get a better look at it. So give me just a second. I'll be right back. All right, so we are back. I've got the entree poured up, added the sauce, put it back in this bowl so you can kind of get a look at it. It's not terribly pretty, but I mean, it's not. Drop some. All right, let's give this a try. There's corn and beans and some kind of looks like barley or something along those lines. You want some? I think he wants to share. Ooh, that's powerful flavor. It's not spicy. It's just really, really zesty. That's good. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, for sure. It's got a little zing to it that some people are not going to like. Kids in particular probably would not care for this at all. It's got a really good flavor to it, but you know what it needs? Realize we're kind of crossing fandoms or mixing universes or whatever with the Mexican style beans and the Asian style jerky, but I need some meat with this. The flavors don't really complement each other much, but need some beef. As Mom always said, it's rude to eat in front of people. I'm going to go finish this, come back, try the dessert, and we'll wrap up this video. All right, so we're back for this one final item, this Made Good granola bar. The entree was really good. It was very filling. The beans and the barley and everything that's in there are very, I mean, that's stick to your ribs kind of food there. Got a pretty standard looking granola bar, lots of oats, chocolate and whatnot. It smells really good. It's gotten partially frozen from sitting on the ground waiting for me to film this video, so it's extra chewy, but it's got a good flavor to it. Sweet, but not too sweet. Chew lets you feel like you're biting into something. Now, I'm not sure what it would be like. You know, could probably put it in my pocket for a little while and try it once it softens up a little bit, but I'm not going to do that. All right, so that's it for this video of the Dad Budget Adventures Homemade MRE Bougie 1. If you're enjoying this content, please leave me a comment and tell me about it. Tell me what was your favorite item in here and if you've tried any of these things. Also, if you have suggestions for places that I can go and try to build one of these MREs, drop me a comment, tell me about it, and I will try to do that. I've already got plans for a menu Bougie 2 that might come out in a couple weeks or next week. Depends on what this snow will let me do. But for now, I need to get in and out of the cold. I've had enough of this. And until I see you again, prepare for the world that you live in, not the one you wish existed. We'll see you around.